Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Ombudsman, in the SALN of the Chief Justice in 2004, he listed 3,300,000 cash and investments. In the SALN of 2005, he put in the same amount, 3,300,000. Okay. I will be using as reference, Madam Ombudsman, the document that you furnished us.
Yes.
Do you have it, ma'am?
Okay na yung copy ako. May copy of the... May copy of the where I annotations are.
Okay po. Let's go to page 2,
Okay.
line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the top.
This is
Page 2, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the top.
Page 2,
Yes, ma'am.
line 1,
2, 3, 4, 5.
5.
The one that says in the account number column 16874.
FAO
Yes,
for the account of?
yes. And then it says 16874 account number. You see it, ma'am.
Yes, I do.
I hope you can help me here because in accordance with this, if you look at the date, it says on May 17, 2004, the Chief Justice purchased 27,933,000 pesos worth of a placement in the PhilAm Dollar Bond Fund Incorporated. And the transaction code is BYMF. Ang ibig po sabihin ng BYMF, buy mutual fund. Bumili ng mutual fund. Kailan bumili? Bumili noong May 17, 2004. Magkano? 27.9 million. Account number 16874. And then, let me invite you to page 4. Page 4. Page 4, line 1, 2, 3, 4. From the bottom naman. Page 4, line 1, 2, 3, 4. From the bottom naman.
Yes, yes, sir.
Do you see it, ma'am?
I do.
Okay. The same account number, 16874.
That's right, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. But the date is different now. The date now is April 6. If you take a look at the date, it says there, April 6, 2005. So that's 11 months after he purchased it. And the amount now
No.
has increased,
Yeah, okay.
28,377. Again, it's from the PhilAm Dollar Fund. But the code is different now. The code says SLMF.
Sell.
The code of SLMF means Sell Mutual Fund Investment. So we have a situation, ma'am, that he buys in 2004 May 27 million worth of investment in the PhilAm Dollar Fund. And 11 months later, in April, he sells, he gets back his placement plus interest, I suppose, since the amount increased. Plus interest. So this is a placement of 28 million.
These are pesos, Your Honor.
Pesos, ma'am, because the transaction code says pesos. If I may finish, Mr. President.
No, please, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. 1 year placement from May 2004 to April 2005. 27 million pesos. Don't you think, ma'am, that that amount should have appeared in his SALN December 31, 2004? The 27 million?
It should have, Your Honor.
Yet it does not, ma'am.
It does not, Your Honor.
Would you be able to, are you competent to enlighten me on that?
No. The best evidence is the document.
Yep.
It is not stated in his SALN.
Because in his SALN, it's only 3.3 million.
That's right, Your Honor.
Yet the documents show that he has a placement of 27
That's
million.
right, Your Honor.
And on December 31, 2004, that 27 million still existed and yet was not reported.
Yes, Your Honor.
In that case, Mr. President, since this is a mutual fund placement, which is not a bank account, which is not covered by the bank secrecy law, I respectfully move that we subpoena the documents from the PhilAm Dollar Fund, Mr. President. I so move.
We will take that up in our caucus.
Thank you, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the body? Majority Floor Leader. There's a motion.
Mr. President, we may take up the motion on Monday, Mr. President.
Yes.
During the caucus, it is best that we do so instead of debating among ourselves openly, Mr. President. So with that, I would like to ask that the Senator Drilon be recognized for the next.
Agent Dalman from
Senator
Iloilo
Judge.
has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Ombudsman, as Ombudsman and former Justice of the Supreme Court, based on your knowledge, should the assets contained in the accounts marked as Exhibit 11Ws be reported in the SALN of a public official?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, let me walk you through some of the accounts in order that we can see what the situation is. Can I refer to you to page 4 of Exhibit 11W?
Page 4.
Excuse me, Mr. President, the clock keeps on moving. I am not speaking. The clock keeps on ticking. I am not talking, so that removes time from me, Mr. President. So please, the clerk is requested to
Will you kindly...
remove. Anyway, Mr. President, I have a pending question. Can I refer you to page 4 of Exhibit 11W? There is an account number there, 0141007129, which indicates a dollar deposit on January 14, 2005 in the amount of $57,000.
Your Honor, can I have the line so that
yes.
I can easily spot it?
The 7th line from the top. Do you confirm that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you use the microphone, ma'am, please?
Yes, Mr. Senator, I confirm that there is a $57,000 entry here.
No.
One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
No. On page 5, Madam Witness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. On the 11th line from the top, again, an account number 0141007129. There appears to be a deposit through a credit memo on July 19, 2005, in the amount of $15,242.44. Would you confirm that for the record, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, in other words, on this account alone, we added it, and the two amounts deposited amounted to $72,242.44 as of July 19, 2005. Now, on page 10 of this document, the 8th line from the bottom,
8th line from
From
the
the
bottom.
bottom, on page
That's
10.
page 9?
page 10, yeah.
10, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. This one. 9. Yes.
All right,
Line 9
line from the
from the
bottom.
bottom. 51. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hindi,
Huh?
89. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm sorry, line 8, I'm sorry, Your Honor,
Line 8.
from the bottom.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
now,
I
okay.
relate with you.
This is the same account, 0141-007-129, where a withdrawal of $89,059.35 was made on October 6, 2008. Do you confirm that, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor.
And therefore, this indicates that on December 31, 2005, there was an amount of 72,242.44 which was in this account because it was withdrawn only on October 6, 2008. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Senator.
Similarly, on December 31, 2006, the same amount should be is on this account, 72,242.44, considering that it was not withdrawn until October 6, 2008. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Please use the microphone, Madam Witness.
Yes, Mr. Senator.
And finally, on December 31, 2007, the same amount of 72,242.44 should be appearing as the same was only withdrawn on October 6, 2008. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Senator.
And therefore, would you now agree with me that there was a violation of the law requiring reporting of assets and liabilities and net worth if these amounts are not so reported?
Yes, Mr. Senator.
Now, in order to save time, can we just make some manifestations, Your Honor, as these are all based
Proceed.
on the documents,
Proceed.
Exhibit 11W. We want to manifest on record that account number 0141-007-129, which is a PS Bank account, was admitted.
Kainta.
Sorry?
PS Bank account, Kainta.
Yes. This is an account which was established on the record upon questioning of the presiding judge on the general manager of PS Bank. So this account is on record as existing. Now, we manifest also that on page 8 of Exhibit 11W, there is an account indicated with the following number, 0141-0169-62 on page 8, and there was a credit memo depositing the amount of $300,000 on July 10, 2007. On page 10 of the same document, there was an indication that this amount was withdrawn on August 5, 2008. And therefore, it is clear that on December 31, 2007, this amount was in account number that we have manifested. We have to manifest that per statement of assets and liabilities of the respondent, this was not reported as the cash equivalent, the cash reported in
Pesos.
DISAL-N is only 2.5 million for 2007. Similar manifestations, Your Honor, are being made for account number 0141019678 in the amount of $455,210.07, which again was existing as of December 31, 2008, but which is not in the DISAL-N of the respondent. Again, account number 0191000373, which appears on page 11 of Exhibit 11W, the amount of $768,000, 733.96, was deposited on October 31, 2008, and withdrawn only on December 15, 2011, as shown in on page 11 and 16 of Exhibit 11W. Therefore, it is clear that while this amount was outstanding and in the bank account on December 31, 2008, December 31, 2009, and December 31, 2010. That's our manifest. Oh, just finally, on page 9 of Exhibit 11W, under account 0141017659, the amount of $299,937.86 was deposited on November 9, 2007. $299,937.86 was deposited and was withdrawn only on August 5, 2008, and was therefore in existence as of December 31, 2007. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, thank you.
Mr. President, may we recognize the Minority Leader, Senator Alan Cayetano.
Senator Cayetano, Alan Peter of Taguig.
Magandang hapon, Mr. Presiding Officer. Good afternoon, Madam Ombudsman.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Our colleague.
Senator.
Ma'am, when this impeachment process started, the President made a case that this is about corruption, cleaning the country, cleaning the judiciary, while the supporters of the Chief Justice was making a case that this is about judicial independence. And these are two valid issues, not necessarily in conflict with each other. And I think, ma'am, you're in the best position to help clarify some issues because you were one of the more respected justices of the Supreme Court, and now you're as ombudsman, you're asked to investigate and prosecute graft cases. No? So my questions will be in line with what Senator Miriam was asking, ma'am. But before that, just some clarificatory questions regarding the AMLAC submission to you, ma'am. Ma'am, you talked about fresh funds, and you said the fresh funds amounted to about 10 to 12 million pesos. And then Commissioner Heidi Mendoza talked about, I don't know how she categorized those funds, but she said total inflow and outflow of around, if I'm not mistaken, $28 million, no, ma'am. But for just to clarify, ma'am, for the public who's listening and for the senator judges, in your study, did you narrow down how much, how do we put it in layman's term, ma'am, magkano po pera at a certain point of time na sure tayo na sa loob ng account? So not taking into consideration yung nilabas at pinasok ulit. So meaning, if you say today or on that date, let's say, what was the largest amount, ma'am, made? For example, ma'am, no, Senator Lacson made his own computation, and he said, nung nag-withdraw si Chief Justice, 3 million plus, except that lampas na ng date na covered ng impeachment yun, dahil December 2011. We're only talking about SAL-N until December 31, 2010. Would you have a computation, ma'am, or a figure of how much
in dollars he would have had at any certain point of time?
Yes, dollar inflows from April 14, 2003 to December 22, 2011 amounted to 12,155,530.86 dollars.
Ma'am, when you say inflow, does this include what was taken out and then put it back in?
Yes, that's the balance.
Yeah, but
Inflow, what they come in, outflow would be they go out.
yes. What I wanted to clarify, ma'am, without having to do the computation by myself is at any, like Senator Lacson in his computation, he said on December 2011, he computed a total of 3 million that was withdrawn by the Chief Justice, meaning that he had at least $3 million at that time. So, ma'am, before that 2011, with regard to the report of the AMLAC, was your team able to extrapolate or to analyze how much money, not taking into consideration what came in or came out, or not re-adding what came in again or went out at a certain point in time? Meaning, ma'am, magkano po ang total dollars niya at one point in time?
I think that would be difficult, Your Honor. At
Okay.
one point in time, it would depend on the time. Let's say 2003, 2004.
No, at any point in time, the most number of dollars, ma'am, my point is coming from the Chief Justice is saying that mali and the report was dinagdagan or added. I don't want to speak for him, but he's making it appear na malayo sa $12 million ang pera niya doon. Para bang nag-double counting. So, did your office have any findings?
Yes, we made sure that there would be no double counting,
Yes.
Mr. Senator, because indeed in the data there are second or,
Yes.
or triple or quadruple entries,
So, ma'am,
which are of the same amount, which are transacted on the same day, but let's say 100,000 is deposited to that side,
yes,
then it's taken out, it goes to that side,
yes.
then it goes on the same day, that same amount goes out to another account,
Okay. Ma'am,
then it
let me try
goes
to
to this
clarify my...
account, but it ends there. So that
Okay.
is the one included in the computation.
So that's what you meant, ma'am, by fresh funds, meaning it was there at that point in time. But so at any point in time, he had $12 million. Is that a correct understanding? Meaning, ma'am, how much did he own
Covered transactions, that's
covered?
Actually, the question seeks to elicit a statement about the float. You see, there was a bank deposit account made, and there were withdrawals, there were deposits. At any given time, this money is put in different investment accounts. That is what normally called in the investment field, there's a float of the depositor. So that will be the function of the people who will analyze this whole thing. How much at any given time was the float of the respondent, if he had any float of investment, and all of these are assets that ought to have been included in the SALN. So, proceed.
I think the Senate President asked it more clearly. So if I may use the word, how much was the float at...
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Ma'am, I think the Senate President put it more clearly. Magkano po yung float at one point in time or any point in time?
You
How
want
much
to
was
know
the
how
money
much
of
was the-
in dollars? I want to know if your office made an analysis. I understand that ang binigay po sa inyo ay transactions. Hindi binigay sa inyo kung magkano ang pera niya at a certain point in time. So, was the analysis together
Well,
with the COA?
at one time there was a withdrawal in the amount of 1,797,722.54.
Okay. Second question, ma'am. the AMLAC only gave this 17-page. Did they give you the balances at the end of the year of the...
No, Your Honor.
And they cannot give that to you?
We never asked for it, Your Honor. And I think they have to analyze it.
Just for the purposes of the impeachment court, we agreed in caucus that we will be looking at the balances on December 31 of every relevant year when he was in government. That's why if this can be given to us, it would make it much easier for us. No? Ma'am, that's my last question regarding the actual amounts. But just go to the issues brought up by Senator Miriam. Ma'am, let me first tell you where we're coming from. After the 2007 election, as Blue Ribbon Committee Chair, we had several investigations, the ZTE, the fertilizer scam, the swine scam, the gift giving in Malacanang, cash gift giving. And every time we had a hearing, the AMLAC, and it was the same Executive Director, Aquino, no, would tell us that he cannot give us any information and he could not give us any information about the accounts because he needed a court order to do so. And we told him, is there any way that you can give it? He did not mention that simply by the ombudsman requesting them, then the ombudsman could have these records. Having said that, we also had hearings where the former ombudsman, and she was being criticized. I don't know if it was because of her name being named Mercy, she was being criticized of being so merciful, that she was being criticized of not investigating impeachable officers, while advocates like Risa Ontiveros, Joel Villanueva, and other party list groups now were saying you can investigate but not file the cases. So one question, ma'am, what is the present mindset or view of the Office of the Ombudsman regarding Supreme Court justices? You can investigate very clearly under Section 22 if it leads to an impeachment. That's clear, right, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah. Now, can you investigate for a criminal case but stop at the investigation and not file the case?
I think the phraseology of the law is that if an impeachable officer is being faulted for a criminal law, the law says, for a criminal offense, the law says that you have to wait for the termination of or the retirement or the resignation or the termination of service before you can file a criminal case. That's what the law says.
And as a former Supreme Court Justice, that's important for judicial independence because you do not want losing litigants or people who want to pressure the courts to go to the DOJ or the Ombudsman and ask them to investigate justices while this is going on, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the question is, ma'am, it seems like it is a new interpretation to interpret the waiver in the, and if I may be allowed to read it, no, the waiver in the SAL-N, which states that the waiver in the SAL-N which says, I hereby authorize the Ombudsman or his authorized representative to obtain and secure from all appropriate agencies, including the Bureau of Internal Revenue, such documents that may show my assets, liabilities, net worth, business interests, and financial connections, to include those of my spouse and married children of below 18 of age living with me in my household, covering previous years, to include the year I first assumed the office in government. In this case, it was signed by Chief Justice Renato Corona, and I assume all government officials pumipirma din, ma'am, no?
Yes.
Kaya ko po sinasabing bagong interpretation, kasi dati, yung mga previous ombudsman, ma'am, BIR lang ang tinitignan o ibang agencies, pero yung AMLAC, hindi nila kinukunan at sinasabing confidential kasi yung bank accounts. To prove my point, for the last 20 years, if you look at the congressional archives, napakaraming bills dito, one of them kay Senator Lacson, to amend either the bank secrecy law to exclude public officials, or I think Senator Escudero, myself, we're working on bills that will amend the SAL-N form to include waiver sa bank accounts. And if you remember, ito yung challenge ko kay First Gentleman dati, I'll sign a waiver sa bank account ko, mag-sign din kayo ng waiver ng Presidente Arroyo sa bank account nyo. But with the present interpretation now of your leadership, Don't get me wrong, ma'am, I agree with it. I agree in a progressive way of fighting graft corruption. But I just want to assure the public that there will be balance and safeguards here. So, ma'am, can I clarify? So, the interpretation now of the Office of the Ombudsman is because of this waiver, taken together with your powers under the Constitution, you can simply write to AMLAC and ask them for information about their bank transactions, and it will be given to you. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. Senator. To me, that's a consent
That's a consent.
on the part of the tax filer
So, no need
that is allowing the ombudsman to
Yes. Sorry for interrupting, ma'am.
sit.
So no need, ma'am, to amend the bank secrecy law or the SALN law because all the ombudsman has to do is write them. And all the AMLAC has to do, on the other hand, is be very progressive that if a public official is depositing more money than what is his SALN, they can consider it a suspicious transaction even if it's below 500,000. They can make a report and give it to you.
Mr. Senator, that's a debatable issue.
Okay.
I'd rather not give my opinion.
I'm sorry about that, ma'am. Where I'm going to is this. There's been a lot of talk, especially in the media and even among senators, about the balance here. That you want an administration that goes after graft and corruption, but not only against the past administration or against their enemies. So I guess what I'm driving at is that with this interpretation, which again I say I support, will the Office of the Ombudsman have a protocol wherein, as you said a while ago, when the nature of the complaint calls for AMLAC to give you information, will it be an SOP, regardless if it is a foe or a ally of the present administration? I ask this, ma'am, with your record has been sterling in the Supreme Court, and there I'm talking about all future ombudsman and the policy of the Office of the Ombudsman. So meaning, ma'am, whether it is the fertilizers, whether it's the ZTE past administration, or let's say 2 weeks from now, there's suddenly a scandal with one of the departments, no? And one of the USECs is being alleged to deposit 50 million in his bank account as a lagay from ganyan. Will this now be a practice of the Office of the Ombudsman to write the AMLAC and ask them to give you the information?
For as long as there are leads that indeed these charges are meritorious, then we will certainly do that, Your Honor.
Ma'am, just as last line of questions.
May I request the gentleman to wrap up?
Sir, may be allowed one last.
Yeah. Proceed.
If you read, ma'am, the AMLAC law, as you said, no, it's maybe I should have. I should ask the executive director of AMLAC because
That's
what
right.
you simply did is to ask him for it, and they gave it to you, no? But
To ask for data
for the data,
that
ma'am,
have a bearing on the
yes,
financial transactions and related transactions.
which is within your powers, and they did give it to you. But when we asked him, maybe he did not understand or he did not think that to suggest that we course it through the Office of the Ombudsman. The thing, ma'am, is that there are prohibitions in law, including, for example, the bank secrecy. So, for example, ma'am, I signed a waiver in my SALN. But, of course, I still have my constitutional rights.
That's
So, for example, if you ask the PNP or the NBI for help to do some investigation on my office, that doesn't mean that the police can enter my office without a warrant and they cannot say, I have a waiver that you signed in your SALN and it was given to the Ombudsman because I still have the right against unreasonable searches and there is no probable cause, no warrant. Is that correct, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So in the same way, ma'am, where do we draw the line? What information the AMLAC can give the Office of the Ombudsman? When is it unreasonable for them? Because in the past, they've always interpreted Supreme Court decisions to say that when it is a covered transaction, they cannot look into it yet until there is a predicate crime, until there is probable cause, and until AMLAC is unanimous, the three officials, into investigating. And in the past, they have interpreted giving information as an investigation report rather than just data. I think, ma'am, that is the uneasiness in the balance between giving you all the powers to go after graft and corrupt, after grafters and after corrupt public officials. On the other hand, making sure that the power is not abused or, well, not abused, ma'am, but
With
it's
the
not
indulgence
arbitrary.
of the gentleman, these issues are not cogent to the impeachment process we are here. This is not in aid of legislation. We are trying a case of impeachment. So, if we want to amend the laws in order to adopt certain policies, we'll have to take that up as a legislative body. But we must concentrate, focus our attention to the matter at hand, and that is the impeachment case
Yes.
before us.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that reminder, because what I was going through is that if this is a product of an illegal search, then this is not admissible. But if it is covered by the waiver, then it is admissible. But I would agree with you, Your Honor, that it is partially not included. But I think it is of grave national importance because
We have to bear in mind, with your indulgence, that the witness was subpoenaed at the behest of the defense. And she was here primarily as a witness for the defense, although they qualified her as a hostile witness. So they're bound, the defense is bound by the revelations of the witness during the direct examination as well as during the cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Mr. Presiding Officer, I know the Ombudsman to be only hostile to grafters and corrupt people in government, but I just wanted these issues ventilated so that we would know when we analyze the evidence. But secondly, I just thought, Mr. President, in my view, that this is of grave national and political importance for our country because this is the first impeachment in how many decades. But anyway, I'll stop there, Mr. President, because my time is up. But may I solicit a view from the Ombudsman? Ma'am, where do we draw the line between it is just data or it is... So what can the AMLAC give you and what can they not give you?
Well, the question should be addressed to the AMLAC,
okay.
because we give them copies of complaints, and if they determine that the request of the Ombudsman is in order, then they do that. If they don't, then they will write the Ombudsman citing the reasons why they cannot give the data, financial data or related transactions.
Actually, the rules of evidence govern in these proceedings, not in the case of inquiries in aid of legislation. And evidence is admissible if not excluded by the rules of evidence or by a statute, particular an express provision of a statute. There's none in the bank secrecy laws that says that evidence illegally obtained in violation of those bank secrecy laws are excluded evidence in any proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree, and thank you for the opportunity to just come up with all of this, to elaborate on all of these issues. But since we'll be taking up the amendments to the AMLAC law anyway, I'll address my questions there. Thank you, Madam Ombudsman.
Thank you, too.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President,
Senator.
Next.
Senator Legarda earlier reserved, but she has withdrawn because the question has been posed already. So may we recognize Senator Francis Pangilinan instead?
The gentleman from Pampanga.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just one question and then a manifestation, Mr. President. The question is to the Madam Ombudsman. Just very quickly, without this waiver signed by the Chief Justice, would you have been able to request for these transactions, these reports from the AMLAC?
I would have, Your Honor, just the same. Under the Ombudsman law, that it allows me to, and even under the Constitution, to request assistance from agencies in connection with the discharge of my mandate.
So even without the waiver, the documents would have been accessible to the Ombudsman?
Yes, it would have been accessible, but whether or not the AMLAC would have provided me is a different story.
My question, therefore, is, and I don't know if it's your office or the AMLA who would be able to answer this. Was the waiver the basis for the AMLA for turning over the documents to your office?
They did not cite any waiver, any reason for giving the documents to me, because in my letter I said in connection with the charges that have to do with violation of the Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, Money Laundering Act, forfeiture proceedings, then that was the reason why, that was the basis of our request for financial transactions and related transactions.
So
Now, whether they based it on the ombudsman law or on the SALN
waiver.
authority given to the ombudsman to determine the existence of other properties, I really don't know.
The reason why I raised that question, Madam Witness, is that during your examination, I'm not sure anymore whether it was the direct examination or the cross-examination, you, and the records will bear me out, you mentioned this waiver twice in explaining the access to. May we therefore be enlightened as to how valuable is this waiver with respect to your work in this respect?
It's very valuable, Your Honor, because it authorizes me. In other words, the consent is there. There should be no doubt that he authorizes me to look into his assets, again, properties.
Because I would think to be able to reconcile these Republic Act 6426, the confidentiality of that consent, written consent, in fact, is necessary. And I'd like to think that this would suffice as written consent, but not to the banks, because this is, of course, government agencies in that respect. I'd like to correct that. The other, Mr. President, is, thank you, Madam Witness. The other, Mr. President, is just a manifestation. In pursuing the earlier point raised by Senator Gingona, there is another item that we noticed here, and therefore we will discuss, we hope to be able to discuss this during the caucus. But just for the record, there is an account of, account number 11505, and the amount on 2003, October 2003, there was a deposit of 12 million. Again, this is a Philam bond fund. And then there was a BYMF in 2004, 521,000 pesos. And then another BYSLMF, I believe this is the same, 11505 on 2005, January, February, March, April, 10 million. So this is another account that is not a deposit, and therefore, perhaps during the caucus on Monday, we may discuss the subpoena as requested by Senator Gingona.
Okay?
Mr.
Madam
President.
Floor Leader.
Yes, may we recognize Senator Greg Honasan.
Madam Ombudsman, good afternoon po.
Good afternoon.
I'm not the one to educate you about the Philippine Constitution, but let me share this with you just the same. Article 3, or the Bill of Rights, Section 1 of the Constitution states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the law. Although this is a political process, my interpretation, my understanding is that the law should be applied equally to all those who are similarly situated. And as a Senator Judge, I would like to have the peace of mind that the Chief Justice is not being singled out here. So let me ask my very brief questions. If you know, Madam Ombudsman, ma'am, no? How many cases are now pending with the Ombudsman?
Cases against officials and...
Opo. If that is available.
Do we have the statistics? Let me just look at my records here.
Yes, ma'am.
Complaints as far as 2011 is concerned.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, to abbreviate, I only have 2 minutes.
Yes.
Just one big round figure, total number of cases.
Are you referring to high-profile cases?
Everything, the works. Mga ilan po?
We are still preparing the statistics for the June, for the State of the Nation address of the President.
Pero marami po, ma'am. Marami.
Definitely, I inherited a lot.
Okay.
Thousands, tens of thousands.
I'm happy with that answer. Has the Office of the Ombudsman also requested the assistance of the AMLAC in relation to other cases pending with the Ombudsman, particularly those involving ill-gotten wealth-related graft cases?
Well, as far as the case against the Chief Justice is concerned, if I recall it correctly, that is the first that has come through me during my incumbency.
Opo.
I did not go over the records of pending cases if they involved unexplained wealth and if the assistance of the AMLAC was solicited.
Opo. Thank you, Madam Ombudsman. In fact, that would be my next question. How many times has AMLAC assistance been requested, even under your watch?
How's that? I'm sorry.
Under your watch, ma'am,
Yes.
how many times has AMLAC assistance been requested?
I don't recall if the assistance respecting the fertilizer scam case involved the assistance of the AMLAC. If I, on my incumbency, was sought, but I remember that the assistance of the AMLAC was sought. Because you see, the fertilizer scam cases came in trickles. They are by the hundreds, and so even when I was not yet there, the cases were filed, and when I'm already in the office, the cases keep coming.
Opo. Maybe this last question is redundant, but how many times has the AMLAC turned over bank account data to the Ombudsman since the creation of the AMLAC in 2001?
I did not get the statistics on that matter, Your Honor.
Opo. My point really, Madam Ombudsman, ma'am, is for us, since this is work in progress, in terms of jurisprudence, even in terms of impeachment processes, that this should not be considered a template for future.
Definitely not, Your Honor. It is only when there are leads, there are strong leads, and after an initial evaluation, we determine that further help can be sourced from other agencies in order for us to determine whether we would go ahead with the conduct of a further investigation, that we would seek the help of the AMLAC. Because I know that the AMLAC is usually stingy in giving records of transactions, financial transactions.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your patience.
Thank
and
you,
your
too.
indulgence. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano wishes to be recognized.
The lady senator from Taguig.
Meron pa tatlo eh. May we change it to Senator Lacson, Mr. President? We have 3 more reservations, Senator Pia Cayetano, Escudero, Estrada.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's only because my name was mentioned by Senator Cayetano and my computation. So, yes, indeed, I was taking notes when the Ombudsman was testifying, particularly on withdrawals from December 12 to 22. And as per her testimony, the total amount withdrawn on those dates was $3,388,323.14. I Google checked or Google searched the exchange rate in December of 2011. It was at 43 pesos and 64 centavos to $1. So at any given time, this was the question of Senator Cayetano, at a given time, particularly or specifically as of December 22 of 2011, the Chief Justice had a total amount of 147,866,400 pesos. And
Floating around.
more or less, give or take, Mr. President. So around 147,866,400 pesos in all in dollar accounts. We're not talking of peso accounts here, Mr. President. So where he put that money, I do not know. The Ombudsman doesn't know. Only he knows. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next.
Senator Pia Cayetano now, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I only have 2 points to raise. My first point I address to the body. I think I would like to perhaps discuss this in caucus. I'd like to raise the point as to how we treat the evidence presented by Her Honor the Ombudsman, and in connection with the PowerPoint presentation, given that the Ombudsman herself has cited Section 21 of the Ombudsman Law, Section 22 of the Ombudsman Law, which states her power to investigate for the purpose of filing a verified complaint for impeachment if warranted. So given the huge values involved in the presentation, I think we need to discuss how this will be treated, because if in fact it is the investigation was done in connection with a future verified complaint, then how are we as senator judges supposed to appreciate that in this impeachment court? I will not offer a suggestion for now, but I would like the Majority Floor Leader to note that perhaps we should, well, I would like this to be discussed in caucus. And then the second point,
Well, as I said, the situation is this. The Ombudsman did not come here voluntarily to testify. She was presented as a witness by one of the sides involved in this proceeding. And if I remember correctly, my rules of procedure and rules of evidence and the principles of trial, he who produces a witness must be bound by the testimony of the witness, whether favorable or adverse to him. So that's the situation.
His Honor's...
Even an illegally sourced evidence presented by one of the parties and not objected to is admissible.
His Honor's position is noted, and for that matter, though, I'd like to hear the views of my other colleagues in caucus on Monday. And then I just go to my second point, and I address this to the Ombudsman. Again, Her Honor mentioned her investigatory powers under Section 15 and 22 of the Ombudsman Law. And I would like to seek her opinion on how we reconcile this with a long line of cases by the Supreme Court interpreting Section 6 of Article 8 of the Constitution. Section 6 states that the Supreme Court shall have administrative supervision over all courts and the personnel thereof. And in connection with that constitutional provision, there are a line of cases, and I will quickly read a few provisions from these cases. In Judge Fuentes versus the Office of the Ombudsman, the Supreme Court said that it is the Supreme Court that is tasked to oversee the judges and court personnel and take the proper administrative actions against them if they commit any violations of the laws of the land. It further states in another case, Judge Cauibis versus Ombudsman, the Ombudsman cannot dictate to and bind the court to its findings that a case before it does or does not have the administrative implication. To do so is to deprive the court of the exercise of its administrative prerogatives. Madam Ombudsman, I fully support the powers of the Ombudsman. In fact, I was one who raised my concerns and my frustrations over the previous Ombudsman's failure to investigate many offenses of impeachable officials. But I would just like to seek Her Honor's position on this, because, again, we are groundbreaking. We are paving the way for, we are setting precedents for future impeachment proceedings. And has Her Honor had the opportunity to look at this so that we can, this will not be an issue today or in the future with respect to investigations of justices themselves? Because technically, let me just finish my statement, I'm sorry. If I look at the cases carefully, it would appear that the Ombudsman would have to refer these cases to the Supreme Court and for the Supreme Court to determine or give the go signal for the clearance. So it seems to be a circuitous way of going about the investigation. But that seems to be the inclination of the Supreme Court, including a 2011 case, if I'm not mistaken, which involved retired Supreme Court justices.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
In the case you mentioned, Your Honor, in the cases you mentioned, those are administrative in nature.
Yes.
So the Supreme Court said that if the complaint, even if it were clothed with the nature of a criminal case, but it appears to be administrative in nature, then the Supreme Court, being
Having administrative supervision.
administrative
would prevail.
supervision and control over officials and employees of the Supreme Court, then it should properly take cognizance thereof. Now, respecting your mention of an 2011 case, a recent case rather,
Yeah,
involving, I think you're referring to then retired and still retired Chief Justice Davide and Alice Austria Martinez.
Actually, I have not read the case itself. It
Yes,
was just given to me as
this case was filed by Oliver Lozano. He was assailing their decision in particular land case, and the Supreme Court said that the ultimate intention of the complainant was to modify or set aside their decision, and they cannot do that. So eventually, of course, the Ombudsman dismissed the case, and while the dismissal rendered the case before the Supreme Court moot and academic, the Supreme Court took time to lecture on the Ombudsman why it should not have taken jurisdiction on the case in the first place, because it was sought to question the way the justices rendered their decision.
I understand. So, in other words, Her Honor is basically confirming that in that case, what the Supreme Court laid down was the guidelines, and basically that was if the case is filed in connection with pending cases, it cannot be used to overturn those decisions. But we make a distinction. I assume that what Her Honor is saying, we make a distinction that if a case is an impeachment case, and for example, in this particular case, which Her Honor would pursue following reports on impeachable offenses, then that would not fall under the Supreme Court's administrative function.
It would not.
Is that what Her Honor is saying?
Yes, it will not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, may you recognize Senator Jingo Estrada?
Gentleman from San Juan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Magandang hapon po, Ginang Ombudsman.
Magandang hapon po rin, Ginoong Senador.
Alam kong pagod na ako kayo at 4 na oras na ako kayo nandito. Ngunit iiklihan ko na po ang aking pagtatanong. Isang tanong lang naman actually. Unang-una ko po'y nais ko pong ipamahagi sa inyo na ako po'y hangang-hanga sa inyo at malaki po ang aking respeto sa inyo sapagkat dati ho kayong maestrado ng kataas-taasang hukuman ng ating bansa. Ngunit paminsan-minsan ay naglalaro sa aking isipan na baka nagagamit po yung AMLAC o mismo ang inyong tanggapan sa mga tao o sa mga politikong kritikal sa administrasyong ito. Sana naman po if you can give us the assurance that your office will not be used to get back at the political opponents of the administration. Sapagkat, halimbawa, meron pong senador dito, meron congressman na bumatikos sa halimbawa kay Pangulong Noynoy at utusan kayo ng Malacanang, oy, tingnan mo yung records niya sa bangko, gamitin mo yung AMLAC para ipitin itong senador o congressman ito. Posible ho mangyari. Sana wag naman hong mangyari na balikan o gamitin yung Office of the Ombudsman o yung AMLAC para balikan yung mga critical o yung mga hindi sumasang-ayon sa kasulukuyang gobyerno. Can you assure us of that, Madam Ombudsman?
Mr. President, Mr. Senator rather, I would not jeopardize my 40 years of government service spotless. I am immodest to say that by allowing myself to be a tool of anyone in order to get back at certain persons against whom that anyone is sore at. I will assure you that.
Kaya nga po ako hanga-hanga sa inyo, Ginoong Ombudsman.
Marami pong salamat, Ginoo.
Isang katanungan na lang po. Kasi kanina, tinanong po ni Senator Honasan kung hiningan nyo, kung hiningan nyo yung assistance ng AMLAC dito sa kaso ni Chief Justice Corona. Tama po ba?
Yes.
Yes, alright.
Tama po.
Kasi meron akong kilalang isang high-profile na kaso na respondent. Alam ko meron ho yatang complaint sa inyong tanggapan. Tatanungin ko lang ho sana kung if you sought the assistance of the AMLAC regarding the case of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo.
I think, on the contrary, it was they who furnished us. I don't know if it was on account of a previous request. Is Mr. Fangon around? He is the head of the Field Investigation Office.
Right.
Can you please enlighten us?
No. I think he's not...
Assistant Ombudsman Fangon says there is no request, neither is there a transmittal.
But there is a complaint against her.
There is. There are several, Your Honor. In fact, I have dismissed 1 or 2 complaints against her.
What is the nature of the complaint? Is it about graft and corruption?
Well, the bottom line always is graft and corruption.
Yeah.
But
So, did you not seek the assistance of the AMLAC?
well, first, Mr. Senator, the procedure in the office is we evaluate a case. There's this case build-up. If after case build-up, we believe that the President or any respondent for that matter should be subjected to preliminary investigation, then we seek assistance of other officers in order to. Otherwise, if on the face of the complaint and on the basis of documents submitted and on the basis of preliminary investigation, preliminary evaluation rather, we find that there is no reason to go on, we dismiss it.
Thank you.
Motu proprio.
Thank you very much, Madam Ombudsman. That's all, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Francis Escudero?
The gentleman from Sorsogon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished Majority Floor Leader. Magandang gabi po, Madam Ombudsman.
Magandang gabi po,
May clip po lamang ito.
Senator.
Alam ko po, pagod na rin po kayo. Nabanggit po ni Senator Santiago kanina na anumang investigasyon ninyo ay may kinalaman dapat o kaugnay ng isang balaking impeachment complaint kung sakasakali ng Kamara de Representantes. Pwede ko po bang matanong, may nasubmit na po ba kayo sa House of Representatives na report o ulat kaugnay sa mga bank accounts at deposits na ito ni Chief Justice Corona?
Last Friday, I sent an investigation report.
Can you kindly furnish us with a copy of the same, if that would be possible? Ang layunin ko po rito, Madam Ombudsman, baka ho mas maliwanag at klaro yung paglalathala doon para mas maintindihan po namin yung mga dokumento
Yes,
na
Your Honor.
inihayag ninyo. Second, Mr. President, while we're waiting for that, nabanggit niyo po kanina at natuwa ako actually sa nabanggit niyo na hindi lamang yung waiver ang inaasahan niyo pero sa pananaw at palagay niyo may kapangyarihan ng Office of the Ombudsman na magtanong sa mga ahensya ng pamahalan.
I'm sorry I didn't get the start of your...
Yes, ma'am. Just submit us the document, ma'am. Hindi na po ako magtatanong.
Actually, I sent one to the speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
And perhaps the speaker will be the one... No, I'm sorry, you are not with Congress.
Yes,
I directed also the submission of this document to the Senate, but yesterday I did not report to the office, and this morning I did not have occasion to check if the Senate has been furnished a copy of this investigation report.
Kindly just furnish us, ma'am, even after this hearing.
Sure, we will do that.
Salamat po, ma'am. Ma'am, kaugnay po na nabanggit kanina ni Senator Pangilinan at yung sagot ninyo na hindi nyo kailangan ng waiver naman talaga para magtanong sa mga ahensya ng pamahalan kaugnay sa transaksyon ng sinumang opisyal na iniimbestiga ninyo. In fact, I filed even a further bill in the Senate na nagsasabing hindi lamang waiver pabor sa inyo, pero waiver na po ng secrecy of bank deposits kasama ng SALN kung ito'y mapapagtibay ng Kongreso. But my question, ma'am, is this. The waiver contained in the SALN pertains to past years, including the year that the person submitting the SALN assumed office.
Yes, sir.
Actually, nagulat lang ako sa ginawa ng AMLAC. Hindi ko po kayo pinipintasan. Bakit po ang sinabmit ng AMLAC ninyo ay umabot hanggang sa mga transaksyon tungkol sa 2011, 2010, at 2012? Kung ang basihan po ng paghingi o pagbigay, hindi ko po kayo pipintasan, ulitin ko. Kung ang basihan ng pagbigay ng AMLAC ay yung waiver, hindi po ba dapat ang basihan nun 2010 SALN tungkol sa 2009 transactions dahil hanggang December 31, 2009 po yun.
Okay.
Kaya tatanungin ko po, nabigay na po ba sa inyo ng Chief Justice yung kanyang SALN para sa taong 2011? May kopya na po ba kayo, ma'am?
No, Senator.
But it would be submitted to you?
It's submitted with the Supreme Court. And they
Hindi po nabibigyan ng Ombudsman?
never. We don't have any.
So, ina-assume nyo lamang po na malamang nag-submit siya o magsasubmit siya for the waiver for the subsequent years?
Your Honor, please. The purposes of this investigation is not only for purposes of determining whether he reported this in his SALN, but for purposes of determining whether he has unexplained wealth.
I'm leading to that, ma'am, also, actually. Yes, ma'am, but in general, my query is, yung poder ho ba ng AMLAC sa palagay ninyo at pananaw ay sumasaklaw sa mga taong sumunod pa dun sa waiver na sinumite? Clearly, walang waiver base sa anumang SALN na final kaugnay ng anumang transaksyon sa 2012. Dahil yung waiver po para dun, fa-file pa ho namin kung sakasakali next year. On the forfeiture case or potential forfeiture case for violation of the anti-graft law or unexplained wealth, that's my next question, ma'am. How are we, to your mind, given not only that you're the present ombudsman but the former justice of the court, how are we to evaluate this evidence aside from the usual presumption of regularity of the performance of one's duties on the part of AMLAC, given that the document you presented to us was prepared and done by AMLAC? Would there be a need, which I will be bringing up in caucus as well, but can I get your thoughts on this? Would there be a need for us to call AMLAC to testify on these documents that you presented that you had no part insofar as the preparation is concerned? I'm referring to the 17-page transaction submitted by AMLAC, ma'am.
That should be the decision of the Senate, whether it finds necessary to summon the AMLAC and ask questions respecting the documents that it submitted to me.
And one final query, ma'am. Insofar as similar documents that you may be obtaining from AMLAC, assuming hindi po impeachment, what would be the probative value of that and how would you use that? Kunwari po, may isang opisyal na iniimbestigahan, hiniling niyo muli sa AMLAC, pengin ng dokumento tungkol sa mga transaksyon sa bangko nito. Since you cannot get the evidence directly from the bank, how would you treat this particular piece of evidence from AMLAC?
Senator, we sourced this for purposes of case build-up. We were only investigating.
So not necessarily to be actually presented in the actual pending case, if at all, before the Sandigan Bayan?
No, Your Honor, because before a case is filed before the Sandigan Bayan, a preliminary investigation is conducted and the respondent is given opportunity to answer what these documents are all about. And if he will say that this is, as has been stated, bloated or a hoax, then it would be the investigating officer who will determine if the claim is meritorious, or if the claim is validated either by testimonial evidence or by documentary evidence.
So for investigative purposes, ma'am.
Yes, that is the reason why we ask for this fact-finding and initial investigation purposes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That is all, Mr.
Mr.
President.
President,
Thank
I
you, ma'am.
move to suspend for 1 minute.
1 minute suspension.
You're very...
Session resumed. Deputy Floor Leader.
Mr. President, we have two final members of the court who want to make a manifestation and a question. Senator Loren Legarda and Senator Coco Pimentel. May we call on the witness just to wind up, Mr. President.
where's the witness?
Mr. President, inasmuch as the witness is now back, may we recognize Senator Coco Pimentel?
The gentleman from Misamis Oriental.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Madam Ombudsman, good afternoon po, or good evening, ma'am.
Good evening po.
Madam Ombudsman, you had a hand in the preparation of the PowerPoint presentation. Tama
Yes,
po ba yun?
Senator. Yes, Senator.
So you were competent to testify on the presentation and the manner of presentation.
Yes, Senator.
But you did not have a hand in the making of the 17-page AMLAC report submitted to your office. Tama po, ma'am?
No, Mr. Senator.
Ma'am, but did you observe extreme care when you were preparing the PowerPoint, in the sense that did you exclude the accounts not under the name Renato Corona, Renato Coronado Corona, which are included in the 17-page AMLAC report? I noticed some.
Yes, well, like Allied Bank.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there is, and there's zero.
There's zero and X, yes, ma'am. But there are amounts, substantial
Yes, Your Honor.
amounts.
Yes.
Were these omitted from
I think they were
the...
included because the presumption is that Allied Bank was doing services for Renato Corona. In other words, this is from the Deutsche Bank. How do you pronounce?
Yes, ma'am.
Deutsche Bank?
Deutsche Bank, yes, ma'am.
And then there must have been a remittance, and it was handled by Allied Bank.
Yes, ma'am. But from the face of the report, you
Yes.
could not get that story.
Yes,
That's
right.
That is Allied Bank
could have,
doing the service for Renato Corona. That is not obvious on the face of the report. So, but my question, ma'am, is: did you exclude all of these accounts?
Those were included.
Included.
Yes. And there is, Your Honor, there is the transaction code there. So,
Yes, ma'am. For example, page 11, the name, first column, Allied Banking
Allied Bank.
Corporation.
Right.
The amount involved is $167,000. The institution name is Deutsche Bank AG.
Yes.
But
Allied Bank,
How-
EQI.
yeah, but why would we now attribute this to Renato Corona? Because on the face of the report.
Because that's it, Your Honor. We thought that this was it came from Deutsche Bank and course through Allied Bank.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
But
all.
we just made the conclusion that it must
Yes,
have involved
yes,
Renato
yes.
Corona.
Whether that's conclusive or not
Yeah.
is beyond my knowledge.
So, but at least we know that
But
it
we
was
still
included.
yes.
Okay, sige po. Kasi,
There's another one.
Yeah, yes,
Bank of
ma'am. There's
BI.
Bank of Philippine Islands. There's even a PS Bank. And there's even a,
Zero and
on
X.
page 12, there's a 0 and an X.
Allied Bank, right.
And the account number is 0 and the other one has
Yes.
around 15 zeros.
Yes.
Opo.
Yes, Bank. Yes.
And malalaki pong halaga ito, $471,000 plus dollars.
Yes, Your
Aha.
Honor.
And then, actually, there is even one entry where there is a peso amount and there is a dollar amount.
Yes.
Did you notice that? Did you also include that, Madam Ombudsman?
No, what prevailed was peso. So
That is on page 16, line number 5. PS Bank is the name. And there is a peso amount, and at the same time, there is an FX amount. So parang double entry na po. ma'am.
this is a peso amount.
There's a peso amount, 6 million,
Metropolitan Bank.
6,091,155.45. And in the FX amount, there is $135,359.01 dollars.
We did not input it in the computation, Your Honor, because it's very clear that it is not denominated as a peso account.
No, but that's Madam Ombudsman, that is the only entry which has both, it has entries in the peso column and in the dollar column. So it must have been a special transaction where you put peso value to it and a dollar
Yes.
value to it.
Yes, this is sourced from Metropolitan Bank and TCO New York.
So, Madam Ombudsman, the important concept I think that you extracted from the 17-page AMLC report is what you call the fresh deposits. What you would believe would be the core dollar
Yes.
ownership of Renato Corona. And at what amount did you put this, Madam Ombudsman?
Fresh deposits, 12, approximately 12 million.
I just finished
$12 million.
my questions. $12 million.
Approximately.
But given the fact that we may have made mistakes or it's just an
Sure.
approximation,
We cannot rule that
we
out.
may have included non-Renato Corona accounts. Can you give us more or less your allowance for error? 12
Margin
million
of error?
plus or minus how many million dollars po? Or minus how many million dollars?
11, 10, but it could not be lower than 10.
So the estimate of the Office of the Ombudsman is that the fresh deposits would be 10 million to 12 million dollars.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so that would be all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, Senator Loren Legarda, Mr. President.
The gentle lady from Antique and the Republic of the Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are not questions and just points to summarize the 2 whole days of presentations of the Ombudsman and just to make sure that I understood things correctly. So will the distinguished Ombudsman yield to just 3 points of very simple clarification?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. First, it was made clear in your PowerPoint presentation that the respondent, the Chief Justice, has transactions amounting to at least $10 million between 2003 to 2011.
Transactional balance.
Yes, in
Yes.
U.S. dollars.
Yes,
Based on
Your Honor.
documents furnished by the AMLAC to the Office of the Ombudsman.
Correct,
But,
Your Honor.
however, unverified by the Office of Ombudsman because, of course, you cannot contact the banks for such clarification necessary.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Second point would be, in the same span of time from 2003 to 2011, there had been at least $12 million worth of fresh deposits in various accounts of the respondent. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That was our observation.
Your
Honor.
observation, yes. And then again, in answer to Senator Pimentel, it could be more or less 11 or 12, 10, 11, but
Or
not
10.
less than $10
Not less
million
than 10.
of
That's
fresh
our,
deposits.
That's our observation, Your Honor.
And when you say fresh deposits, Madam Ombudsman, that would mean not coming from other accounts of the same person, but from other sources into his present accounts. Is that correct?
Fresh deposits that were not returned to where they originated.
Yes. They were not placements made and then returned to the same placements.
They were not returned to the same
Yes.
account.
Yes. So these were fresh deposits from sources other than his already existing accounts.
How's that again?
These were deposits from accounts from other sources other than those which already existing under his name.
Yes. In other words,
Yes.
they did not return
The
to
same-
the same other
Yes.
account where they probably originated, and
Yes.
then they went around circuitous and then never returned there.
Yes.
So we call that fresh,
Fresh
deposits.
deposits.
I want to clarify that.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you meant by fresh deposits. When you say, therefore, it is fresh deposits, does it mean that at any one time he could have had at least $10 million in various accounts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So I make it clear that at any one time, the respondent could have had at least $10 million in any of the 82 accounts presented in your PowerPoint presentation.
That could be the total of all the accounts.
Of all the accounts
Yes, Your
in
Honor.
a series of transactions
Yes, Your Honor.
in a span of 8 years, or at any one time he could have had $10 million.
Up to 2011, I think the
Yes.
data given. Yes, Your Honor.
In transactions or at any one time, Madam Ombudsman?
Total transactions
Yes.
would balance would be different from the account balance.
Account balance, yes.
Your Honor.
Yes. I am referring now to account balance. I understand, as I premised earlier, the transaction accounts, and then I asked about fresh deposits. Now I ask, at the most conservative estimate at any one time, based on your transaction and fresh deposit balances, what could have been, at a very conservative estimate, the balance that the Chief Justice, the respondent, could have had at any one time?
We were not able to determine that, Your Honor.
Okay, I understand. Yes. And now, not relating to the first three questions and clarifications I made, I just wanted to clarify your answer to the Senator Judges that based on the mandate, the constitutional mandate of the Ombudsman, and based on the Ombudsman law, which governs you in your office, the Ombudsman may seek assistance from the AMLAC to open any account of any person who is being investigated without a predicate crime as stipulated in the AMLAC law. Is my understanding correct?
Your Honor, if we believe that the charges elevated to us,
Can you kindly speak in the microphone? Thank you.
if we believe that the charges to us call for information from the AMLAC,
Yes.
then in the course of our fact-finding investigation, we would probably tap the services of the AMLAC.
Yes, of course. Which you did in this instance.
Yes, we did.
And even without a predicate crime, the Ombudsman, because of its constitutional mandate, asked the AMLAC to present bank accounts of the respondent.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And based on your knowledge, is this the first and only time that the Office of the Ombudsman did so, or were there other instances in the past when the AMLAC had furnished bank accounts to the Office of the Ombudsman without the provision of a predicate crime?
Not under my watch, Your
Not
Honor.
under
I
your
don't
watch. To
remember.
your knowledge, you would not know.
I wouldn't.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Executive Floor Leader,
Mr. President, I move that we discharge the witness.
the Honorable Ombudsman is discharged.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, and thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have been informed by...
Next witness.
I have been informed, Mr. President, by the defense that they would rather call the next witness tomorrow, if it's
Do
within
you
the
still
pleasure
have
of the court.
to present the three other witnesses?
We will, Your Honor.
All right.
And with the kind indulgence of this honorable court, may we be permitted to present them tomorrow.
All right.
We're already tired also, Your Honor.
All right.
So,
So you're asking for
A continuance for tomorrow. Your
continuance until tomorrow.
Yes, Your Honor.
Majority Floor Leader.
yes, Mr. President, may I ask the Sergeant at Arms to make an announcement?
Thank you, Your Honor.
The Sergeant at Arms is directed to make the announcement.
Please all rise. All persons are commanded to remain in their places until the Senate President and the Senators have left the session hall.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn until 2 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 16, 2012.
Any objection? Hearing none, this hearing is adjourned until 2 o'clock of May 16, 2012.
Good afternoon. After 2 full days of questioning, the Senate, acting as an impeachment court, discharges Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales as a witness. Today, we saw the Ombudsman stand by the investigation of her agency into the alleged unexplained wealth of the Chief Justice. Ombudsman Morales was citing two grounds for her investigation. First, she said, was the Ombudsman Act, which gave her body the power to investigate and to ask other government agencies for help, specifically in this case the Anti-Money Laundering Council, for information in investigating public officials. The second basis that she said was the waiver in the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, where public officials sign and allow the Ombudsman to look into their assets and their properties. Today, in the redirect examination, we saw lead defense counsel Serafin Cuevas try to establish that the Ombudsman is not competent to testify on the AMLAC report. But we saw Ombudsman Morales responding to this that it may be beyond her competence, but it is not beyond her comprehension. She said that she relied on the AMLAC report, presuming regularity in the course of official duty, and this is something that was affirmed or agreed to by lead private prosecutor Mario Bautista. We also saw some heated moments between the Ombudsman and Cuevas, as well as the Ombudsman and Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Senator Santiago was questioning the procedure by which the Ombudsman acquired that report from the AMLAC. Senator Santiago pointed out that there should have been a court order or an investigation first by the AMLAC itself before it could have turned over data to the Ombudsman. And she said that in this case, that was not followed. But again, Ombudsman Morales stood by her investigation. There was also question on the secrecy of bank accounts as well as the Foreign Currency Deposits Act and the confidentiality of the bank records of the Chief Justice. Ombudsman Morales said that her agency actually kept that confidentiality as the records were personally delivered to her by AMLAC Executive Director Vicente Aquino. Other questions from senator judges involved the amounts. They were comparing the amounts that were in that report with the previous silence of the Chief Justice, and they're trying to make sense how they will actually treat the testimony of the Ombudsman, considering that it was not included in the impeachment complaint, which is something that they would like to tackle in their caucus on Monday. Another question from senator judges was that of political persecution and if there is such a thing as having too much powers with the Ombudsman. But of course, we saw Ombudsman Morales saying that she was not used, affirming that she was not used in this investigation and that she would not allow her record in government service to be tainted. She said that she has a spotless record. So basically, the Ombudsman fielded questions for today, but of course, the defense still maintains that she is not a competent witness to discuss the AMLAC. What we would see in the coming days is if the impeachment court will actually summon officials of the AMLAC and how the defense plans to proceed with the testimonies of the complainants who filed petitions against Corona before the office of the Ombudsman. We now bring you the press conferences of the defense and prosecution panels.
Magpapatotoo yung mga nakausap ko kanina na siguro